first question, since Mr. Buster had the opening statement, the first question is going to go to Mr. Jeffries. The first question is this: do you support or oppose the special state fire prevention parcel fee?
Well, that's a softball to me. I strongly oppose the fire tax. The state is imposing a fire tax on rural homeowners, folks who live outside of city boundaries, of roughly $150 per home. It is a fire prevention fee. It does not fund a single firefighter or a single fire engine or a single air tanker or helicopter. It is just part of the shell game in Sacramento. It was a bill that was introduced, never had a hearing, not a single public hearing, and was rammed through very, very quickly with no public input or debate. And so for California, 800,000 California homeowners are going to be hit with this tax. And it is just wrong. And I'm pleased to say I've led efforts up and down the state to repeal the tax and to fight the tax with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association.
Yeah, of course this was a state tax, not a county tax. I oppose a retroactive tax, but my opponent has either failed to show what additional funding can go to state fire in place instead of this tax, and he's failed to really deal with the future. That is, why are homes being put in the way of firefighters such that we have the tragedy of Esperanza Fire, where we lost 5 firefighters to a structure that was outlying, should have never been there. And we need to do the planning, and that's what I've been trying to do, so that we can minimize, particularly the harm to firefighters and to residents from these terrible wildfires. We know where they go generally, and we need to start planning. And my opponent has failed to deal with that issue, and he's failed to stop the tax.
Mr. Jeffries, 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm going to spend most of the night correcting the supervisor on his errors. One, I did lead the statewide effort to repeal the tax. Couldn't get it through because of partisan politics. Two, I actually did support Senator Kehoe's bill to limit the type of development and the settings of developments that occur in rural high fire zone areas. That was signed by the governor, so the statements you just heard from Mr. Buster were absolutely false.
Mr. Buster, your rebuttal.
Well, they haven't been implemented here. If on the county level, there's been no state standards set. I mean, this is very strange. After you lose 5 firefighters, you get absolute silence from the state. You don't get any proactive response from our state legislators to deal with the issue in the future. And I and other county officials, fire officials, had sat on committees to try to work our way and try to find the areas where we could do the kind of proactive planning necessary to avoid these kind of tragedies in the future.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. Buster, you are first. Yeah. How will the county be addressing blighted areas now that there are no redevelopment funds?
Right. As you know, the state dropped a real bomb on Riverside County, particularly. It was heavily dependent over many of the cities on redevelopment. And we're in the process now of grappling what will substitute for that. Well, part of the thing that I see is our bonding capacity. I mean, we've done a lot of important facilities, built infrastructure that was needed out in communities with redevelopment dollars. And we can bond on them into the future because they're long-term investments. So the county has independently our own bonding capacity, and the availability of that capacity is largely going to be dependent on, and this is something we all need to keep in mind, how many jail beds we're going to need. So that the recent move to put low-level offenders, moving from the state to the county, on better probation programs to oversee them, and then there will be a subsequent effort to attempt to take some portion of the 65% of our jail inmates who are awaiting trial, they haven't been sentenced yet, and see which one of those could be more properly put out in the community. All that retards the need for jail beds, opens up more bonding capacity that the county can use for redevelopment purposes. And boy, do we have some very important and high priority list of things to do there. I mean, we have people living in third world conditions down in locations like Duraville that got flooded out here in recent cloudburst, where we've already invested a lot of redevelopment funds. We need to finish the job of those things. So we're going to have a short-term push to see what the highest priorities are, and then we need long-term efforts, hopefully coupled with new state legislation for infrastructure, particularly in blighted areas. And so we need to do several things at once here. And but the need is still great here in our county.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, the issue on economic development and turning around our communities that are in trouble. The redevelopment areas, project areas, we're actually doing a very good job in many cases. There were abuses that were occurring throughout the state. And unfortunately, Governor Brown brought in a sledgehammer to fix the problem and really made a disaster for our communities. We could have stopped the abuses that were occurring throughout the state. Now we need to do what we've always needed to do. We need to have the partnerships between the public sector and the private sector to revitalize our communities. We do not have the RDAs anymore. It's simply not going to happen. So I believe, and my experience from the private sector is something that I think is crucial for the First District office. We have to open up the county and roll out the welcome mat to folks who want to come here and create jobs and build businesses from the ground up. It takes, for some business owners, 5 to 7 years to get their permits from the county. 5 to 7 years. Why would you bother? You know, we have to change the environment here in Riverside County. Now, for those of you that live here in Riverside City, you are so lucky. Your city is head and shoulders above the rest in processing and attracting businesses. The county of Riverside is the worst of the worst. California is rated the worst in the nation for the climate for businesses. The Inland Empire is rated the worst of California. So we're at the bottom of the barrel, and Riverside County is doing nothing to fix that. And if we want to turn our communities around, we better attract the private sector in here and create jobs so that we can create the revenues that we need to rebuild our communities.
Mr. Buster.
Well, I thought the question was about blighted areas, not on whether business can get through the process rapidly. I'd like to hear some specifics. I hear generalities. I know there was a huge amount of business that was unleashed during the boom times here. We certainly didn't want for a great amount of business growth, job growth. We've had a lot recently as well. I mean, I think of the Marsh Air Reserve Base reuse, primarily backed by the County of Riverside, where we 2,600 jobs at Fresh and Easy. More jobs on the way, high-paying jobs with Amro Fabrication over in the new DHL building.
Time's up.
We cut red tape for them. And we're also trying to upgrade blighted areas that don't have roads and drainage, right, such as in the Mead Valley.
Mr. Jeffries.
He got into jails and he wants specifics for me, so figure that out. Folks, it does take the private sector to rebuild and put people to work. Government does not create wealth. The private sector does, and wealth allows us to buy our homes, keep a roof over our heads, send our kids to college. That is what we are talking about. If you're looking for more government debt, more than the $1.6 billion Riverside County is already in, there's your answer. If you want the private sector to come in and allow our college kids to have a job, I'm there.